Hi everybody, let me tell you a new story today. The story is told in the first person, everyone. But this is not my story. I will share my own story later. When I was in college, I had two really good friends. One was Han, who lived in the same dormitory with me. The other was Kai, who rented a very cheap small apartment off campus. To be honest, during college, in order to enjoy the last bit of freedom in life, we would spend our days either playing games at the internet cafe or singing and drinking at a KTV, hardly doing anything serious. One day, as usual, we were chatting idly when Kai casually mentioned that he had been having some very interesting dreams lately. These dreams were like a TV series, where each time he entered the dream, it continued from where it left off. Han and I asked, "What was the plot of the last one?" Kai replied, "It's a dream about riding a bicycle." In his dream, he kept riding a bicycle, as if he was going somewhere but couldn't find the destination. I originally thought it would be some kind of interesting story, but his answer seemed quite boring to me. "What's so interesting about that?" I asked. However, Kai said excitedly, "The feeling of the pedals and the surrounding scenery were so realistic that it did not feel like a dream at all." After that, for a whole month, Kai would report to us every day about his dreams from the previous night, like riding by the seaside or on a gloomy mountain road. Sometimes he would say, "What a pity, I did not dream last night." In short, whenever he had a dream, it was always about riding a bicycle. We gradually found it quite interesting and often tried to interpret Kai's dreams, asking if he had forgotten some past memories. We looked up psychology books and even analyzed his mental state. We found that although Kai felt very realistic while dreaming, as if he were really riding a bicycle and wandering around, he couldn't actually remember all the details of the dream after waking up. However, a month later, Kai's dreams began to get a bit strange. He started dreaming about riding on the same road by the railway tracks for 3 days in a row. We all thought something was off. Kai said the railway in the dream was built in the middle of a road with very narrow sides and 2 or 3-story houses built along the road. After dreaming about the same place for several nights in a row, Kai felt it was like a kind of a guidance. Although it was just a dream, he said he felt as if he was getting closer to the destination. A few days later, I went home for some private issues and didn't see Kai and Han for about half a month. When I returned to school and I met Han, he eagerly told me that Kai had become very strange lately. He hadn't been attending classes, hadn't been seen at the internet cafes playing games, and when we called him, he wouldn't come out. When I asked if he had any new dreams, he just responded with a vague "yeah" and hung up. This was definitely not right. Han and I both had an ominous feeling. I called Kai first, and as expected, his voice was listless, as he said he was at a friend's house and didn't want to go out. Han and I had to talk a lot to persuade him to meet us, so we arranged to meet at a restaurant near his friend's house. When Kai walked into the restaurant, I almost did not recognize him. In less than 2 weeks, he had lost a lot of weight, and his dark circles around his eyes were almost as bad as a panda's. Han and I asked him what had happened easily. After hesitating for a long time, Kai sighed and said, "I feel like if I say it out loud, it would become real." He continued, "For 3 days, I dreamed about riding along the railway tracks. Then, for 2 days, I didn't dream at all. But after that, strange things started happening. On the first day, I dreamed that I rode to a railway crossing and waited for the train to pass while sitting on my bicycle. On the third day, I rode past the crossing. On the fourth and the fifth day, I rode past the crossing again. On the sixth day, I stopped my bicycle and walked across the crossing. On the seventh day, it was the same. I put my bicycle on the side of the road and walked across the crossing. But this time, I stopped in the middle of the tracks and then kept walking along the railway. The dream just kept going." Although Kai did not understand what it meant, he felt that if he discussed the dreams with us, they would become real. Kai started to be afraid of dreaming. He thought that by changing places to sleep, he could avoid the dream. So he stayed at several friends' houses, but no matter when or where he slept, even if it was just a 10-minute nap, the strange and realistic dream would keep appearing. Finally, Kai couldn't hold it in any longer and said shakily, "I dreamed that I was going to commit suicide. I don't know what I will dream about next, or what will happen to me in the end." Han and I listened and felt deeply distressed and helpless. We did not know how to respond to this question. How could we help Kai? In the dream, Kai seemed to have a clear intention of heading towards his destination, determined to achieve the goal of committing suicide. Han and I could only try our best to comfort Kai, who was almost frantic, saying, "You're still alive and well now. This won't happen, and we won't let it happen." That night, we followed Kai back to his apartment. Han and I decided to keep an eye on him day and night, not letting him out of our sight for a moment. We divided the shifts. Han stayed with Kai that night, while I went back to rest and would come to relieve him early the next morning. But the next morning, I was woken up by a phone call before I even got up. It was still a bit dark outside. I picked up the phone and saw that it was almost 6 o'clock. It was a call from Han. I rubbed my eyes hard to wake myself up and answered the call. "Han, how is Kai?" There was a lot of noise from Kai in the background as Han spoke, and he kept comforting him. It seemed that the situation was quite serious. I hung up and rushed to Kai's apartment. When I arrived, Kai seemed to have calmed down a little bit, with swollen eyes from crying, sitting on the floor listlessly. Han pulled me aside and told me what had happened last night. In the early morning, Kai had another dream. He was lying in the middle of the railway tracks, looking up at the vast blue sky and feeling the vibration from the approaching train on the tracks. We knew time was running out. If this dream continued, we all knew what the ending would be. But none of us could be sure if it would have any impact in real life. We had considered taking Kai to see someone to exorcise the evil spirit, or to visit a psychiatrist, or even a hypnotist, but none of us knew much about these things. There was no one around who could help, and it was still early in the morning. In the end, we decided to look for the reason ourselves and not to waste any more time. Han went out to look for information while I stayed to watch over Kai. Han searched online for news about the recent suicides by lying on the railway tracks, but the web information was too chaotic, with unclear times and locations, and there was almost no useful information. Since we always thought this was a paranormal event, we didn't think of contacting the police first, and Kai had indeed not been harmed. So we did not have much hope, as expected. When Han went to the police to inquire about the recent suicides by lying on the railway tracks, there was no useful information. After Han left, Kai and I decided we couldn't just sit at home and wait, so we went out for a walk around his apartment. Kai's apartment was quite far from the railway and the bus station, and the surrounding buildings and facilities were quite old. But we hadn't heard any ghost stories. We had to go back to the apartment. Kai's room was on the first floor, and his bicycle was parked outside the door. I checked out, but did not find anything strange. When we got back to the room, the only thing I could do was to keep talking to Kai to make sure he wouldn't fall asleep. At around 9 o'clock, Han arrived at the city library and searched through the old issues of the Citizen's Daily to find reports of recent accidental deaths and serious injuries. Around noon, I received a call from Han. He said, "I found 5 recent accidental deaths and serious injuries." Then he told Kai the location and street names. Kai said he remembered the last location. A month ago, there was a suicide by lying on the tracks in the suburbs. On that day, Kai had ridden his bicycle to the suburbs for a trip. However, when he reached the suburban train station, he thought that it wasn't a good idea to ride in such a desolated area. So he parked his bicycle next to the station and went for a walk nearby to get some food. The accident happened during this time. Everyone. Kai had no idea about it. He ate and walked around for a while, and then he came back to get his bicycle. He did not notice anything unusual. In other words, it wasn't Kai who witnessed the suicide, but his bicycle. After finding out about the incident, Han returned to the apartment, and we examined Kai's bicycle inside and outside carefully. This time, we found a dark object stuck under the seat. We took the bicycle to the police station immediately and told them that the bicycle might have been at the scene of the suicide in the suburbs and might have been contaminated with parts of a human body. Whether the police believed us or not, we also explained Kai's dreams briefly. When we returned to the apartment, it was already evening. Kai hadn't had a good night's sleep for a week, and he still didn't dare to sleep that day. Han and I stayed with him, comforting him for a long time. Eventually, he dozed off and woke up when it was already bright outside. We all fell asleep soundly and woke up at noon. When Kai woke up, he was so happy that he cried. He hadn't had that dream again. A few days later, the police got in touch with us. They informed us that the dark object stuck under the seat of Kai's bicycle was the eyeball of the suicide victim. So everybody, this is the end of the story. And please share what you think of this story and your stories. If you enjoyed my work and would like to help me continue to bring these stories to you, please subscribe to my channel or like my page. Give a thumbs up to the stories you appreciate and share your thoughts and opinions in the comments. Share the stories with anyone who might find them enjoyable. Thank you, everyone. This is Alex's story time, and I am Alex. I got a lot of good stories to share with you. Thank you.